Hello, you're watching Calling All Stations, and if you guys had caught my layout update video earlier on today, episode 9 of Woodford Wells and Croxley West, you will know I was going to do a new section of questions for you guys. Normally YouTubers do this thing where they do a question and answers where you guys, the viewers and the subscribers, ask questions for the YouTuber. I'm going to do it the other way around. I've got some questions for you about my layout and some general modelling questions that I want answered. And there's a fantastic community of modelers on YouTube, and I've had a lot of great comments and advice and tips in the comment sections, so this is a useful tool for me. I'm going to ask you guys some questions to see if I can get the answers to some things that I've been thinking about. So, question number 1, and this relates to my cobalt motors that I've been having problems with since day 1 on this layout. And just a quick recap, here's a picture of one of the DCC Concepts cobalt IP motors, and basically these motors have a self-centering function. When they turn on for the first time, the motor self-centers. That's so that you can fit them easily underneath your turnouts and underneath your points. There should be quite a simple process to turn this self-centering off, because it's quite annoying when you turn your whole layout on. If you don't turn it off, all the points basically go through this self-centering process, which is really noisy, and then basically none of your points are set, and then you have to make sure all of your points are then set. Not a problem if you're just operating your layout normally, but if you're troubleshooting some stuff and maybe you've got a derailment that keeps happening and it's basically cutting the power, every time you go through the reset process of turning your layout back on, all the points do this self-centering thing. And there should be, so the manual says, an easy way to turn this self-centering off. And thank you guys for all the advice that you've offered on trying to help me out with this so far. And you've offered some descriptive advice in the comments. You've sent me some YouTube videos which have been really useful, and I promise you guys I've absolutely followed these to the letter, and still doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work for the first 11 point motors that I had, which is basically all of the Woodford Wells, all of the original layout, which I bought in batch from Hatton's, and I bought in a box, and they came in a box of 12, and I did have a spare one. Unfortunately, I broke the spare one by not programming it properly. I wired it up wrong. Now, none of those original 11, none of the self-centering will turn off on those original 11. And I've followed your instructions to the letter. I've followed your videos that you sent me to the letter, and they will not turn off. Now, interestingly, I bought another Concepts IP cobalt motor for Croxley West, and you're saying to me, why on earth did you buy one of these motors when it's not going to do what you wanted to do, or you can't get it to set the way you wanted to set with the Roco Z21? I bought it so I could test, because I wondered if that box of 12, that batch that quite clearly was a batch and came all together, maybe there was something wrong with that batch, maybe there's something misprogrammed within those chips. And I thought if I bought a completely fresh one on its own, maybe it will work. And lo and behold, it does work. And I went through the process that you should follow to set these, to turn the self-centering off, and it turns itself off. Just to remind you of the process, basically these motors have a switch on, you set it to set, you then send address 198, and 198 is the address you send it to turn the self-centering off, and you send that address twice to make sure it's registered. You then put the switch back to run and you cycle the power. So you turn the power off on your controller, wait a couple of seconds, and then turn it on. Now, what should happen at that point, and what happens with my new cobalt motor that I've installed on Croxley West, nothing happens. And that's exactly what should happen. The self-centering should not then recenter. It should just stay in its last position. Nothing happens on that new one, but the rest of the 11 on Woodford Wells, they then just do the self-centering thing again, so it's obviously not been turned off. Once you've then done the self-centering process, removed the self-centering process, you can then set your address in exactly the same way. You put the switch to set, you send it the new address, which happens to be, all my points start with 900 and something, and they've got numbers that are categorized slightly differently. So 901, I know, is that's one of the shunt points, blah blah blah, etc. You then send the new address and put it back to run, turn it off, turn it on, and then it works, and it has the address stored. Now I can change the addresses all I like on the old motors. I can set any address. I can set address 1, I can set address 999. It will change to whatever I like. But if I try and send it this 198 command, it just will not turn off the self-centering. Interestingly though, that new motor that I bought does. So is it something, could I have bought a bad batch with programming errors within them that just for some reason they just will not turn off this self-centering? Or am I eventually going to find the right combination of turning them off? Because I've tried things like putting it into set, doing the process, doing 198, leaving set down and then turning it off, and then coming back, turning it on and then putting it back to run, and no combination of that seems to work. And I've obviously got it working because I've done it on the brand new one, and I followed exactly the same process and it works. Now somebody did suggest turn off Railcom. God knows what Railcom is, but it's a function within Roku Z21. Maybe that's a little side question. What is Railcom? And I'm sure some people will be able to tell me. Somebody suggested turn that off on the Roku Z21 because they've got exactly the same setup. They've got Roku Z21 control, and they've got Cobalt motors like I have. God, I can't say that phrase. They've got that exact same setup, and they said turn Railcom off because that might be fiddling with some kind of setting within the chip in the motors. I thought maybe this is the final thing, maybe this is going to solve it, and it didn't, and I was quite disappointed. I don't try and fiddle around with them too much just because it's a real faff to get underneath the boards, especially now at this end of the layout. I have to sort of unplug each section, and it's quite complicated and it's quite a faff. But that's basically my first question is, do any of you out there have the Roku Z21 with IP Cobalt motors, and do you have them not self-centering? And there is one person out there, because I know you commented on episode 8. One brief thing is, if you're just going to send me the general instructions, don't worry about that. I've read the PDFs and the attachments that have been sent. If it's just the instructions, the basic instructions of how to set these, I know the process, I know how it works. Don't worry about sending me those. If it's things like the Railcom button, or if there's any additional functions in the Z21 that you think I should try, or maybe doing the setup in a very specific manner, those are the kind of things I want to know. Don't worry about sending me the instructions. I do know how the setup should work in theory. I want to know some of the tips and tricks that you might have. The other thing I'm toying with is borrowing another DCC controller and using that and seeing if that will set them. Maybe. Let me know, see what you think. Let's move on to question 2. Okay, question 2. This should be much more of a short one. I want to know how you guys keep your layouts clean. And I'm not talking about track cleaning. I've sort of got quite a good process for track cleaning. I'm sort of talking about the rest of the layouts. As you know, especially people who've got layouts in lofts or anywhere in the house, dust will build up inevitably. Especially if I've got a piece of rolling stock that's been left out for a couple of weeks on the layout, you'll see dust starts to build up specifically on the roof. Now that dust is obviously building up on the rest of the layout, on the scenic area, and it's building up on the platforms. However, you're probably not noticing that so much because dust building up on the scenic grass area, it's literally almost invisible. But what I want to know is how you keep your layouts clean. Do you use some kind of little mini vacuum cleaner? Do you use some kind of duster, some kind of static brush? I don't know. Let me know. How do you keep your locos dust free? I also like to display my locos out of the box on shelves, problem with that is they're sitting open to the elements and they get dusty as well. They're easier to sort of pick up and dust, and I have got this little brush that I use. However, I kind of think I'm making it worse with this brush, because when you use it, you just see lots of extra dust moving about that's obviously attached to the brush. So I reckon people out there will have some kind of cleaning method. Do let me know what the best way of keeping a layout clean, and sort of the areas that are really hard to keep clean, like scenic areas and platforms and stuff where there's lots of complicated images or people or figures, there's lots of nooks and crannies. How do you keep them clean? How do you keep them tidy? Okay, the last question, number 3, is, this is quite a fun one. I'm looking for a piece of software that will do automatic control of my layout. Very simple automatic control. I'm not talking about very complicated uncoupling and all that kind of procedures. Basically just move a train up and down automatically without me interfering with it. Now I know that the Hornby E-Link system, that does do it, and it will switch points, and you can basically hit record, you can move a train, you can move a point, you can move the train back, and then you can run and repeat the process. And I've seen videos of people doing that online. That's exactly what I want. I don't want really complicated things with blocks. I know there's sort of like DCC feedback loops, and you can have blocks, and you can see physically on a diagram where the train is, basically if you were sitting in a signal cabin basically. And if I had a really complicated layout, that would be something great, and that would be something that I'd be exploring. But for something as small as Woodford Wells, I just don't think I really need it. Basically, I just want a function to record a little program where I move a train, I switch a point, I move another train out, I move that one back, and then repeat the process basically. So I can basically set it running and be in the room, and just sort of it runs itself. I used to really like doing that with my tail chaser layout, my continuous oval. Just used to set it going, and then I just go and do stuff on the computer, and then every now and then have a nice little glance to the model railway. That's a really big thing that I miss, having an end-to-end layout. When I have a running session, I'm very much involved with the running session, which is great, and it's fun obviously, and that's why we model, to be involved with it. But sometimes I would just like to sit back, let it run itself, just basically moving a couple of trains, not doing any kind of complicated uncoupling procedures. Just to do something simple, and just to have it do it in the background. So every now and then I can glance over and I can enjoy whilst doing something else, or whilst tidying the room. Now I've tried a couple of pieces of software. I think I've tried something called iTrain, and I've tried something called, is it JMR or JMRI? The iTrain one, I can get it hooked up to the Z21, I can get it to move locos, and I can get it to switch points. But as far as I can tell, without having block feedback from the DCC system of where a train is, it will not really record a little program for me, unless people out there have got iTrain and they know a better way of doing it. The other one, free piece of software called JMRI, that was mind-bogglingly complicated, and I think that will do what I wanted to do, but it's just so complicated, and it's literally programming from the basics. I mean, the only thing you're not doing is writing the piece of software yourself. You have to, looks like you have to program so much, and such a steep learning curve, that I'd like to possibly avoid that one if possible. But if somebody's got a really simple, quick and easy guide to do that, then do let me know. The other option is maybe investing in the Hornby E-Link software and just hook that up when I just want to run it automatically like that, and I think I could probably pick that up cheaper. But if there is a piece of software that I could acquire free if possible, or very cheap if not possible, to run with the Z21, that's the key bit of information. I'm using a Roco Z21 that works through wireless. Normally I'm controlling it on a tablet here. This is my point control system, and that's controlled through the tablet, and then I use an old iPhone to actually control and move the trains, and I just keep the tablet open on the point control panel basically. That's how I usually control the layout, through Wi-Fi, through the Z21. I'm looking for a way that you can control the Z21 through an additional piece of software on a PC that would automate that process. Or maybe there's an app, I don't know, that would basically automate a very simple process. And I'm not talking complicated here. I'm literally talking about move a train X amount of distance, throw a point, move the train over the point the other way, and then maybe reverse that process, just so I can sort of run it in the background whilst I'm doing some other things. I'd really like to do that. So if you know of a piece of software or a way to do that, do let me know. I'm sure somebody out there must know. Right, that's, I think, all I've got time for. Again, I've waffled on for a really long time, and hopefully you've watched most of what I've had to say, because I'd really like some answers to those questions. Get in contact. Twitter, I'm at CAS Railway Blog, all one word. You can get in contact on Twitter, or as always, you can comment below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I'll be doing some more of these in-shot videos as well. Don't forget to also watch my short film on Going in Search Network Southeast. That's a really great video. We spent a lot of time shooting that and editing that with a couple of my friends, Victoria and David. So do watch that. It's a really nicely put together piece of work, I think. So I'll put a thing up here somewhere, so you can go and click and watch that. Thanks for watching, guys. I will be back soon. I'm hoping to do a little bit more with YouTube and my website coming up imminently. See you guys soon. Later on today, I'm going to do that again because that was... Here is a picture of that too. It'd be really good if I could actually get the broken one now. I'm going to go and do that. Bear with me. One of the DCC Concepts IP Cobalt I will get it right soon. And to recap.